Hari Om. Swarna Bhagini, you can chant. You're self-muted, I think.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
Om पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थाम विकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तकः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितं लोके सज्जन षट्पदैरहरः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयाद् भारत पंकजं कलिमलत्प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुल्लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। धन्यवाद भगिनी।
Hari Om. सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ परं वरिष्ठं ब्रह्मिष्ठं परमानन्दरूपिणं परमार्थानन्दयतिं Sadgurum pranatosmyaham. So, the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, we saw, is built upon the teachings which have been given in the 13th chapter. So, therefore, both these chapters are actually complementary to each other. And based on the 13th chapter, we come to know that every individual is made up of two factors. One is called the Purusha, the consciousness principle, and the second is Prakriti or the matter principle. The Prakriti, the matter principle alone, has evolved into the universe, and not only the universe, our body-mind complexes also. So they're all a modified version of Prakriti only. We also saw that Prakriti is Saguna endowed with attributes, Trigunatmika Maya, the other term we use for Prakriti. And the three attributes of the Prakriti will flow from the Prakriti into the universe and into the different body-mind complex through the Panchabhutani also. Right? So we saw all of this. And even in absolutely inert objects, you will have the Tamo Guna, which is almost 100%. And then in living beings, you will have a combination of Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, and Tamo Guna. Right? So you will actually see that the proportions vary in them. Obviously, in the human Janma, you will have more of a balance as compared to the animal Janma. And in the plant Janma, the Sattva and Rajas will be very, very less proportion as compared to the Tamoguna. So therefore, everyone, every living being is a mixture of the three gunas in different proportion. And all the three gunas are very, very important, not only in the pursuit of worldly goals, but also in the pursuit of spiritual goals. We must remember this, because sometimes we get confused when we speak of Gunatita, etc. The three gunas are very, very important. We are not, demeaning or lowering the importance of the gunas, right? We will see how we need to be aware of them, right? So in the pursuit of both worldly goals as well as spiritual goals, the three gunas are important. And Sattva Guna, as I said, represents the Jnana Shakti, Rajo Guna, the Kriya Shakti. Okay, and Tamo Guna is the one that causes people to take rest, etc. So all of them are equally important, but the Rajo Guna is what helps Karma Yoga. So a person gets involved in Pancha Mahayajna, etc. So for that, Rajo Guna is very, very important. Otherwise, what will happen? We will never go out and do anything. Therefore, Karma Yoga requires Rajo Guna, and therefore we should never criticize Rajo Guna, right? Because Chitta Shuddhi we require, right? But that is mental refinement through using our Rajoguna aspects in serving the society and people through Panchamaha Yajna, right? So we must remember this. And Karma Yoga is very, very important, and therefore Rajoguna is also very, very important. What about Tamoguna? That is also very important, because without resting, rejuvenation or staying fresh is not possible, right? So sleep deprivation itself is a big disease. So sleep is also very important, and so Tamoguna is also important, right? So only thing is, it should not come at the wrong place, or it should not impact us at the wrong timing, right? So for every person, for every spiritual seeker also, the three gunas are very, very important. And the spiritual seeker needs to judiciously make use of all these three gunas and then successfully attain moksha. And if I have to use the three gunas, what is required? I must know how to use them, what is the nature, how can I, manage the gunas, etc. Right? Just like you use any instrument, we also need to know how to manage and use the gunas effectively, right? So that is why in the 6th chapter, actually Lord Krishna said, Naiva tasya kritenartah na kriteneha karshana na chasya sarva bhuteshu kaschidartha vyapashrayah. In this world, he has nothing. That is a jnani, to gain through action, nothing to lose through inaction, right? Upon no being does he have any dependence for any purpose. So basically a jnani has understood the gunas and has transcended the gunas. We will see more about it as we progress. So your own body mind complex can be your friend if you know how to keep it fit and use it properly using the three gunas, right? Now the mind itself can become a curse when it is full of tension and stress, right? So a stress-ridden mind can never be a blessing. So one has to transcend all the three gunas, and transcending is important because, very important to understand this point. Transcending the guna is important because it can cause bondage. It is very easy to understand transcending Rajo guna and Tamo guna. But we always wonder, at least I wondered in the initial days of Vedantic studies, why is it that it is important to transcend Sattva guna also ultimately? Obviously Tamo, Rajo and then Sattva guna in that order, right? So the reason is, with any guna, right, I have got clear raga and clear dvesha. Why? For a particular guna, whenever it is predominant, my personality becomes well defined as per that guna. So I will have clear raga and dvesha, that is desires and dislikes for that particular personality. And this well-defined personality can be a blessing, it can also be a curse. Because I will always look for an environment which conforms to my swabhava. For instance, a sattva guna person may like the house to be always quiet so that it is amenable for meditation, etc. Right? Whereas some other people would like lot of things around. They will find a quiet house. Oh my God, it is so, they actually compare it with the silence in the cremation ground, etc. They don't like that. They want the house to be all the time bubbling with activities, etc. So a Satvika person needs a calm kind of silent atmosphere, an ashrama kind of atmosphere, while a Rajoguna person wants something which is constantly, somebody moving around, lot of activities, etc. Right? So for each guna, we must remember that the personality becomes dependent or adapting to a particular kind of infrastructure and setup. That also can become an addiction. And when it is not available, I can become miserable. And what is moksha ultimately? Yes, whatever be the condition, one is happy with himself or herself. Freedom from emotional dependence on a particular external factor is moksha, right? So the moment I depend upon an external condition, I'm going to be in trouble because external conditions are unpredictable. Whether it is based on sattva guna or rajo guna or tamo guna, ultimately, right, any of these binding kind of desires, raga dvesha, can cause problem, right? So moksha is emotionally not depending on any person or any external factors to be happy, right? So these three gunas always look for a particular setup, whether it is sattva, rajas or tamo guna. Therefore, initially you depend on it, right? But you need to gain this knowledge and get out of that dependence. So to use the three gunas judiciously, Lord Krishna is feeling that we must understand the nature of the three gunas. Where will it be useful? How to use it? And progress or attain sadhana chatushtayam, progress on the spiritual journey, and ultimately transcend all the gunas. Very important aspect this is. That's why I thought I must spend this time initially. So Krishna is discussing the 5 factors which are associated with the 3 gunas. Right? This is basically the context we must remember why it becomes important. Right? So we saw the 5 factors. The first one is the nature of each guna. Sattva guna is one which makes one calm, quiet and contemplative, jnana pradhana, right? And rajo guna is karma pradhana, and tamo guna is generally feeling sleepy or low in energy, etc. And then Lord Krishna talked about the bandhana prakara, how each guna binds a person, right? How does it make him dependent, right? So from a preference, how it becomes an addiction. Like for instance, looking for morning coffee and having a cup of morning coffee is a preference. You prefer it. But once you cannot live without that coffee, it becomes an addiction, right? So that addiction is what Krishna is talking about not getting into, right? So when I sit for meditation also, what happens? If I have too strong addiction to any of these, they will all start disturbing us, right? So that is the problem when we get too dependent on anything, right? And then we saw the bandhana prakara, then we saw the third one, which is the lingam or the indicator. In fact, I specifically said that we are not to use these lingams to judge others, especially within the family, outside our family, and also at the workplace, right? It is meant for self introspection, right? So whether we are Satvika, Rajasika, or Tamasika. So verse number 11, 12, and 13, we saw, right? We completed in the last class, and we also saw that when a person is able to gain more and more knowledge, Jnana Pradhana or Jnanendriyani are more active, and he is able to absorb more and more, and it actually indicates Sattva dominance. Now, when Rajas is dominant, he cannot even have a reading habit. Very difficult. Reading a newspaper itself will be a problem. He'll stop with headlines only. There will be no knowing activity at all. All the time he wants to do something. When he is working on some particular assignment, he'll already be planning the next assignment, right? So his mind is constantly worried or preoccupied, right? So one has to be active all the time, but to what extent, right? So that is the Rajasic kind of mindset, and very useful during the Karma Yoga time as well as Panchamahayajna, but it becomes an obstacle during Jnana Yoga time because mind is preoccupied with the next program. We are not able to concentrate on the teaching itself. We cannot sit down and listen, right? So this is the indication of Rajoguna Pradhana. And the indication of Tamoguna Pradhana we saw in the 13th shloka is Aprakasha Apravittischa. Neither Jnanendriyam is active nor Karmendriya is active, right? All the time resting, eating, sleeping, eating, and then resting. That's all, right? That's the extreme. Therefore, Aprakasha Apravrittischa Pramada Mohaha Evacha. So these are the three topics that we completed, and we saw definition of each guna, the mode of bondage, and the indicatory mark or clue. Continuing. Yada sattve pravriddeto, yada sattve pravriddeto, pralayam yati dehabhrit, pralayam yati dehabhrit, tadotamavidam lokan, tadotamavidan lokan, amalan pratipadyate, amalan pratipadyate. And when we talk about travel after death, right, we should know what travels after death. And we should know this because we have seen this in Introduction to Vedanta. And in this context, we must remember that every individual has got three sharirams: Sthula Shariram, Sukshma Shariram, and Karana Shariram, right? Of course, along with this, you will have the reflected consciousness and the original consciousness, if you all remember these five aspects, right? Now, the most important aspect is obviously the consciousness principle, the original consciousness principle, or Atma. Now, at the time of death, right, what happens? The outermost physical body, the Sthula Shariram, falls and it merges into the Pancha Bhutani, right? The earth will merge into basically the body will merge into earth, the physical body. Water in the body merges into water. Similarly, the temperature of the body merges into Agni Tattvam, right? Basically, the Sthula Shariram falls and goes back to the Pancha Bhutani. There is no question of traveling. So then what travels, right? So what about Atma or consciousness? Atma or consciousness also cannot travel. Here I've used the word Chit. The term is used as Chit for Chaitanya Swarupam. So you can also replace this with Atma or just consciousness, etc. That also doesn't travel. Why? Because Atma Sarvagataha. Atma is there everywhere. And in Introduction to Vedanta, we saw that this Atma gets reflected in the Sharirams, and we saw the various reflected consciousness. To keep it simple, the reflected consciousness here, if you see, is being referred as Chidabhasa. Okay, so basically consciousness doesn't travel, Sthula Shariram doesn't travel. So we have what? We have Sukshma Shariram, Karana Shariram, and Chidabhasa, right? So now the mind components, right, of Sukshma Karana Shariram, that's the mind, the prana, and all the powers in the Jnanendriyani and Karmendriyani, right? If you see, that one travels, Sukshma Shariram, right? And then what else travels? So our Raga, Dvesha, all of that, the Vasanas, the memory, all of them travels along with the Sukshma Shariram and the Chidabhasa, because the reflected consciousness is traveling along with the Sukshma Shariram and Karana Shariram. We must remember that as per our Shastra, it can carry the imprints of the memories in the mind, right, which we refer to as vasanas, which is what basically carries all our punya papa blueprint within it, right? So basically the Sukshma Karana Shariram, which is mind, prana, karmendriyani, jnanendriyani, along with the vasanas, everything, that is what is going to travel. Now the three gunas, now what did we say, is part of all of them, right? In different proportions we have nourished them in our Sukshma Shariram, right? And they are all there in various proportions, like our Raga, Dvesha, likes and dislikes, which are actually referred to as Vasanani. And all the Punyam and Papam, which we had acquired in the past Janma, as well as the one acquired in the current Manushya Janma, right? So if it is in animal Janma, then we must remember there is no acquiring of Punya Papam in this Janma, right? Only in human Janma we accumulate Punyam and Papam, right? Otherwise, in all the other Janmas, we are only exhausting Punya Papam, whether it is Punyam or Papam, right? So it is not enough to say past Janma, Karmani, we have to say past Manushya Janmas, right? And we should remember that every animal has had countless past Manushya Janmas, and every animal can, and at some point in time, manifest as a Manushya Janma also. Therefore, the karmas are all there in the Sukshma Karana Sharira complex. And this complex, right, Sukshma Karana Sharira Chidabhasa complex, the three of them together, is what leaves the body at the time of death to acquire what? Another appropriate body according to the karma. Now, in the 15th chapter, actually Lord Krishna will clearly say, very, very direct evidence of this. Mamaivamsho jivaloke jivabhuta sanatanaha manashashtani indriyani prakritistani karshati. We will be seeing this soon. In the 15th chapter, in the 7th verse, Krishna says, a part of myself alone is in the form of the eternal jiva in the world of beings. This jiva pulls the 5 sense organs with the mind as the 6th, which reside in the body. He's talking about pulling all of them and leaving the body. The next 2 verses also continue like this. And here a part of myself means obviously Hiranyagarbha Ishvara. This is Ishvara, right? So all the karmendriyas, jnanendriyas, everything gets drawn out and it leaves the body. Now the question is, what will be the direction of the travel? What type of the world and body the jiva will acquire after death? So Lord Krishna says, it again depends upon the predominance of the three gunas. When a sattva guna pradhana person dies, the phalam is different. Similarly, the phalam is different for rajoguna and tamoguna. So this is what Lord Krishna is describing. 14th shloka talks about the travel of the Satvika jiva. And the 15th shloka talks about the travel of both Rajasa and Tamasa jiva. Right? But we have to remember all the time, whenever we talk of travel, we are only referring to a spiritual ajnani, not a jnani. The one who is spiritually ignorant only travels. In the case of jnani, what happens? Jnani has burnt his sanchita karma, he has avoided agami karma, and he has exhausted all the prarabdha karma, right? So we saw this in the introduction to Vedanta, right? So in the last portion, we elaborately discussed this, right? So in the case of Ajnani alone, whatever we are discussing is valid, right? Travel topic is not relevant to a Jnani, right? So Lord Krishna says, Deha Brita. This is, the Lord Krishna uses Deha Brita because the one who carries the body. And the commentators point out that the one who has got Deha Bhimana, that means Abhimana, with the ahankara or the dehabrit. Dehabrit basically indicates an ajnani with ahankara and mamakara. Sattve pravriddetu. Suppose he has nourished the sattva guna more and more by practicing karma yoga initially, and gradually he came to upasana yoga, attended Vedanta classes, Gita classes, etc. And he developed more and more sattva guna, right? So karma will increase rajoguna, while karma yoga will increase sattva guna. We must remember, normal karma will increase rajoguna. Karma yoga will result in increase of sattva guna gradually and more of jnana, right? So one will nourish rajoguna and the other will nourish sattva guna, right? So here it is not, if it is karma yoga, the person will have predominantly sattva guna aspects in his mind, right? So one creates, basically the rajoguna person will create more and more raga or desires, right? So here in this case, sattva guna is nourished. By practicing upasana yoga, sattva guna is nourished. By doing shravanam, mananam, etc., sattva guna is nourished. But he did not attain jnanam, right? So the person dies. He is an ajnani satvika who dies. Pralayam here in this context means maranam, not the other pralayam, right? So we must remember that. And amalan lokan pradipatyate. He is so pure and superior, so he attains the higher lokas, right? So amalam means more and more joyous or happy world, like bhuvar loka, suvar loka, mahar loka, jana loka, tapo loka, satya loka. There is gradation even in these lokas. So the higher the loka, the higher you will have the quality of the kind of, the happiness and all that. And I think I mentioned earlier, in Taittiriya Upanishad, the various gradations are actually talked about, right? The Ananda itself 10 times, 100 times, 10,000 times, etc. Right? So it is superior loka, basically. These are all different lokas, each one being superior to the other one, right? So Uttama Vidan, Uttama Vid means Ishvara Upasakaha, or Uttamaha here means a very, very great Upasaka, the greatest one, right? So the Upasaka, he is not a Jnani, we must remember, right? So Ishvara Upasaka will attain these higher lokas. This is the Satvika Gati, whereas what about the other two, Krishna is going to discuss in the next verse. Rajasi pralayam gatva, Rajasi pralayam gatva, karma sangishu jayate, karma sangishu jayate tata praleenastamasi moodayonishu jayate moodayonishu jayate. So rajasi, we should supply pravriddhe sati. From the previous verse we should supply that. Basically, if rajoguna is predominant and a person is more and more greedy and ambitious to attain more and more, extrovertedness is more and more, then the more extroverted we are, the further away from spirituality we are. So that is why in Lalita Sahasranamam there is a very well-known line, Antarmukha Samarajya Bahirmukha Sudurlabhaha. Antarmukha Samaradhya, whose worship is easy for those whose mental gaze is turned inwards. And Bahirmukha Sudurlabhaha, whose worship is difficult for those whose mental gaze is outside. Basically, this is just upasana, right? And the same goes with a Brahmagnani who is also involved in Vedantic meditation, right? So extrovertedness doesn't help. He's going to be taken away more, further away from spirituality. So in Kathopanishad, there is a verse, the very first verse of Kathopanishad opens this way. Paranchikani vyatrinat swayambhuhu tasmat parang pashyati nantaratman kaschid dhiraha pratyagatmanam namaikshat avritta chakshuramritva tattvam. Right? So very few people look inwards and they are interested in that. So here Krishna is speaking about the Rajoguna person who is extremely greedy and extrovertish and refuses to think. Why? Refuses to think. If the person thinks, then he will know that he is headed in the wrong direction. Why? Because always as a finite individual, I am going to find myself inadequate. Today I earn 1,000 rupees, I want 10,000. If I have 10,000, I will feel like earning 10 lakhs. Otherwise, crores. A person who has 50 crores will think he is poor as compared to somebody who has 500 crores, right? So we keep on and on and on. So this Rajoguna only increases the greed and the extrovertedness, leaving no time to think. And if the person is able to think, then he will be able to look at what is the real goal in life and then turn inwards, right? That is what Krishna is saying here, right? So a greedy Rajasic person will be going further and further away from spirituality, and therefore, since he is always action oriented, in the next Janma also he will get Manushya Janma and more with more and more action, right? So Lord Krishna says, Rajasi pralayam gatva, Rajasi pravriddhe sati pralayam gatva, karma sangishu jayate. He will be born in the Bhuloka among the human beings, not amongst the spiritual ones, but the ones who are highly driven and all the time running, right? So karma sangishu jayate. Now we have to be very careful here. We are not again criticizing karma. The karma is very much required for chitta shuddhi. What we are criticizing is not work but workaholism. Work is not dangerous. Workaholism is a problem. So karma sangishu means among the workaholics he is born, jayate. So this is the gati of Rajasic people. And what about the Tamasic people? Tata pralina tamasi. So tamasi pravriddhe sati. If his mind is predominant with tamoguna, right, when the person dies, moodayonishu jayate. He will be born with such a body which is not fit for thinking at all. Because in the human Janma, he was given a free will with which he could have utilized to direct his attention to the right goal, but he didn't, right? So this person will be born in a body which will not be fit at all for thinking, right? So it could be a person with lower capacity for thinking, or it can be one of the lower Janmas, right? Where scope for thinking itself is not there. For instance, a cow, a horse, a buffalo, they can only exhaust their karma. They have no thinking faculty. So Muda Yonishu means lower Janma from that aspect, right? So these are the 3 Gatis. So what is the message here? You now know how to use the 3 gunas, right? So from Tamoguna, you also understand the good, bad nature, the symbol, etc., right? And you know how it binds. So may you go from Tamo to Rajoguna and from Rajoguna to Sattva-guna, right? So from Sattva, may you go to a Gunatitaha stage. So from Prakriti to Purusha, Anatma to Atma, Drishyam to Dhrika, observed to the observer, consciousness principle. Right? Until I know this, life is going to be a problem, because as an individual, I will always experience limitations. So we now covered 4 topics. Okay. Lakshanam, Bandhana Prakaraha, Lingam, and Gatihi. Right? Now Krishna wants to talk about the Phalam. Phalam means the consequence of the Satvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika actions in this Janma itself. Gati is the consequence after death. Phalam is the consequence in this current life itself. Right? The consequence of the 3 types of action. Karmanas sukrutasyahuhu, Karmanas sukrutasyahuhu, Satvikam nirmalam phalam, Satvikam nirmalam phalam, Rajasastu phalam dukkham, Rajasastu phalam dukkham, Ajnanam tamasa phalam, Ajnanam tamasa phalam. So what is sattvic action? Those actions for which the beneficiaries are more than just your family, your own, children, or your business, etc. Like Panchamahayajna. So where the world also gets benefited, I also get benefited, right? So in our daily puja, although we may have different sankalpas, right? We always end with Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, Sarve santu niramayaha. So it is always Sarve, not just me and my family. So para upakara karmani, things, the actions done to others, right? Satvika karmani, they are greater and more beneficial, right? And you get more and more sattvic, right? So I'm basically not the only beneficiary, but everybody is a beneficiary, right? There is a very famous verse, Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaiva avadharyatam atmana pratikulani paresham na samachare. Shastra say, listen carefully to the principles and essence of the dharma. Having listened and understood, bring them into practice. Like we studied the 20 values in chapter 13. Are we able to look at that, assimilate and follow, right? That's an example. Deeds done by others, right, which hurt your feelings, should never be repeated by you. That's the meaning of this shloka, right? So, and also there's another one which you may have all heard, which is a Subhashitani, which is Paropakaraya Punyaya Papaya Parapidanam, right? So it says help as much as possible, even if you cannot financially help, right? Verbally we can help, physically we can help, right? Even if we have 1 minute, we can even pray Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha, right? This is a highly sattvika karma, and the benefit is internal growth. What is the other extreme? Just like it is para upakara, you have para apakara karmani. For my benefit, always just for my benefit, even at the extent of harming others, I do karmas, that is para apakara karmani. It may help me get money now, but they are adharmic actions which can result in my being rich now quickly, but can definitely add to spiritual downfall, right? And those are called tamasa karmani. Para apakara karmani. Now what is rajasa karmani? Right? Basically, I am confined to myself, right? It is intermediary, right? Para udasina karmani means neither this is here nor there, it is intermediary, right? The satvika para upakara karmani will uplift me spiritually. The rajasika para udasina karmani will keep me in stagnation and neither upwards nor downwards, right? And para apakara karmani will pull me down spiritually. Thus, the three types of karma will give three types of results. So, if you are a spiritual seeker, increase satvika karmani and reduce rajasa karmani and drop tamasa karmani. Right? So, in Niti Shatakam, basically, Bhartrihari says this: Ete satpurushaha parartha gatakaha swarthan parityajye. Samanyastu parartha mudhyama bhritaha swartha virodenaye. Temi manusha rakshasaha parahitam swartaya nignantiye. Ye tu gnanti nirartakam parahitam tehkena janimahe. So the highest type of people are those ete satpurushaha parartha gatitaha. They look for an opportunity to do good to others, right? Often swarthan parityajya, even without bothering about their own inconvenience, right? Like you will see, there are some people who go, we'll see in Swamiji's class. On the way back, they'll go out of their way to drop people and come back, especially the senior citizens who may not find transport to go back home, etc. Right? Some people go out of the way, right? But there are others who don't bother also, right? So these ones are the greatest ones, Satpurushaha. Samanyan parartha mudhyamashridaha, swartha virodena. They will do it, but as long as they don't have any inconvenience, they will do it. So that is samanya. And the third one is te mi manusha rakshasaha parahitam swartaya nignantiye. For their own personal benefit, they will even go to the extent of dropping, they say, dropping mud in others' stomach. It's a Tamil saying, right? So they harm others for the interest of their own benefit. They are called manusha rakshasaha, right? So, and Bhartrihari says there is a fourth one who harm others just for harming, right? Even though they don't get anything out of it. He says, I don't even have a name for these people. The fourth category, right? I don't even have a name. What do I call these people? Te kena janimahe, right? So, therefore, we have to increase the sattva guna and reduce the rajo guna and minimize tamasa actions is the message here. So in the shloka, sukritasya karmanaha. Sukritasya means satvikasya karmanaha. Right? Basically the satpurusha that we saw in the previous verse. If you see, Bhartrihari has, I think, was a great Vedantin, because you will see his teachings, right, completely based on the Shastras in the form of Niti Shatakam and Vairagya Shatakam, right? So, Satvika karma are basically Paropa karmani or Pancha Mahayajna. So, Nitya Naimittika karmani, our regular prayers and all come under Satvika karmani, right? And the Kamya, that is when we pray for something, right? Saying that, you know, I'm doing this because my child should get admission, I should get promotion, etc. And Prayashchitta karmani, they come under Rajasika. And Nishiddha karmani comes under Tamasic. Adharmik karmani comes under Tamasic category. So for the Satvika action, Satvikam Nirmalam Phalam. Here the word Satvikam means Sukritam Nirmalam Phalam. Pure spiritual punyam is acquired. Internal growth takes place, right? So we saw that, right? So we saw all the 20 virtues in the 13th chapter. All these virtues will develop through Satvika karma, right? So Satvikam Nirmalam, we can say Amanitvadi Phalam Prayaptete. Whereas Rajasastu Phalam Dukkam. When Rajasic karma, selfish karma, even at the cost of others' peace of mind, when I do the phalam, that is dukkam, right? So rajasaha, you have to add the word karmanaha. Rajasaha karmanaha, phalam is basically dukkam, right? So Rajasic action causes anxiety or stress. Why? Because constantly you're worried about amassing wealth, achieving results, etc. This is not, we're not talking about the noble Rajasic karma, which is Panchamaha, Mahakarma, etc. Right? Panchamahayajna, right? So they will work 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours, etc. They're all the time highly short-tempered, right? They achieve a lot, but peace of mind goes haywire, right? And also their teams in office, they will be high achievers, so they are themselves stress ridden, and they will also push people to no extent to get what they want, right? So very dukkham or tension causing rajoguna, right? So therefore they also end up in lot of wrong habits to manage their mind, right? So that is also a problem to escape the stressful mind, right? So ashantasya manobharaha, they basically have to relieve their mind of this tension, so they also take sometimes to bad habits, right? So that is dukkham. Rajasastu phalam dukkham, and ajnanam tamasaha phalam. The consequence of tamoguna is ajnanam, right? So a person will get ajnanam through tamoguna, right? So he's already having a lot of ajnanam. This will continue, right? And the threefold halani of the threefold karmani are basically a calm and composed mind, which is satvika, and completely ready for jnanam. And then the rajasic mind, as I said, dukkham is the result, and you have the ajnanam, which is the result of the tamasa kind of mindset, right? So sukritam punyam, result of satvika paropakara karmani, rajasastu phalam dukkham, and then you have ajnanam tamasaha phalam, right? So, and this tamoguna person perpetuates self-ignorance continuously, right? Continuing. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam, sattvat sanjayate jnanam, rajaso lobha eva cha, rajaso lobha eva cha, pramada moho tamasah, pramada moho tamasah, bhavato jnanameva cha, bhavato jnanameva cha. So this shloka also deals with the same topic of phalam of these three gunas. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. When sattva guna is predominant, jnanendriyani becomes more active. So he learns more and more, and jnanam can also increase sattva guna, and the sense organs also become more alert. Whereas rajoguna lobha evacha. When rajoguna is predominant, jnanendriyani are suppressed, and therefore he will all the time be looking for action, and consequently more results also. And if rajoguna increases, the greed also of the person will increase. So rajasaha lobha evacha, and pramada moho tamasaha. When the tamoguna is predominant, right? Not only pramada, here wrong decisions, it means wrong decisions, error-ridden decisions will increase, right? But what will happen is moha, delusion, will also increase, mistakes, etc. will increase, and he will not be able to make proper decisions, and ignorance itself will increase, right? Tamaha. So Arjuna himself, if you see, is going through such a state, right? So if you remember Arjuna's state of mind in the beginning, right? He said, Karpanya dosho pahatasva bhavaha prichami tvam dharma sammuda chetaha. He asked Krishna, right? After what? Spending 14 years in the forest and having had several meetings and deciding that fight or war was the only option out, with very clear thinking, he had come to that conclusion. And then when he comes directly in front of his near and dear people, he's become completely deluded, right? So that is what Krishna is referring here, right? The very Dharma Yuddha which he saw, analyzed, thought through, spoke to people, and as a last resort came to the war, he now began to see it as an adharma, right? So conflict and wrong decisions are the result of tamoguna, right? So we must remember that. So each one of these results in a different kind of results, right? So tamoguna consequences ajnanam eva, right? Perpetuation of all forms of ignorance, including self-ignorance. So these are the three phalams of the three gunas. Continuing. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasthaha. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Madhye tishtanti rajasaha. Jaganya guna vrittastaha. Jaganya guna vrittastaha. Adho gachanti tamasaha. Adho gachanti tamasaha. So basically this 18th verse, it should be read along with the 15th verse, because both the 15th and 18th verse deal with gati or travel after death. So the same idea is reinforced here also. Sattvastaha urdhvam gachanti. Those people who are satvika, who are doing a lot of para upakara karmani, the mind is more sattvic, more expanded, and ahankara, mamakara are diluted. So these, the karmas are also noble, like Panchamaha, Yajna, etc. And when punyam is acquired more and more, naturally because of the punyam, one gets higher loka, right? So sattvastaha marana anantaram, after death will go to higher loka, right? And as I said in Shastra, 6 higher lokas are spoken about, right? So in all of them, pleasures will be more and more because of the punyam. Madhye tishtanti rajasa. You yourself will understand, very simple Sanskritam this is. So the Rajasic people who are involved in, who neither do para upakara karmani nor para apakara karmani, but they continue to pursue their own selfish interests, right? They don't acquire too much of punya, but they don't get papam also. Therefore, they have a horizontal travel, neither upwards nor downwards. Therefore, madhye tishtanti, which is madhyam here means manushya lokaha, bhulokaha, right? So he will be again born as manushyaha. So madhye tishtanti rajasa. Whereas jaganya guna vrittasta, right? Jaganya guna means lowest guna, right? Refers to tamo guna, right? Vrittastaha means those who remain in a lifestyle which is governed by tamo guna, right? In this lifestyle, vrittastam, right? Those who remain in this, right? They are the people who have lot of, they're doing papams as well as they are living in constant confusion. Adho gachanti tamasaha, right? And actually the Shastras call these people Prakrita Purusha, right? Samskrita Purusha are those who are basically cultured in different form, educated in the Vedas, the Shastras, right? And who are on a spiritual journey. So these are Prakrita Purusha, and one who goes by Raga Dvesha without questioning whether it is right or wrong, just goes by instincts, right? So his actions are not governed by dharma, right and wrong, but more by raga dvesha. Whatever I feel like doing, I will do, right? And modern democracy gives more and more freedom to this kind of behavior, right? The dharma and adharma are not being stressed as much, right? And nowadays we don't, many youngsters we see don't want to go by what their guru says, the teachers in school say, or their parents says, and neither are they exposed to the Shastras also, dharma and adharma, right? So therefore many actions become wrong actions, right? Acquisition of papam will be more in the case of Prakrita Purusha, right? So because for the Samskrita Purushaha, Shastra will govern their life, right? So they know the difference between dharma and adharma. So ado gachanti tamasaha means any of the 7 lower lokas. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Rasatala, Mahatala, Talatala, Patala. And because of Tamoguna, he doesn't do any prayachita karma also. At least that he could have done in this Manushya Janma, right? So if you go by the Vedic style, Veda gives some routine for us in such a way that unknowingly we would neutralize some of the papa karmas that we do. Like during taking bath, we are supposed to say some shlokas. During Sandhya Vandanam, we are supposed to say some things, right? Daily prayers, we are supposed to say something. At least some of the papams you will get neutralized by that in a normal course of day, right? But if you don't even have a religious way of life, then even that chance is not there. So whatever papam I did through my jnanendriyam, karmendriyam, thought, word and deed, right? In the night when we chant Shivamanasa puja, right? Karacharana kritam va, kayajam va. So at least whatever I did by omission, commission, please forgive me. At least that we would do, and some bit of the papa would get wiped off, right? So there is a famous shloka, in fact, in the Shastras. Kalau kalmasha chittanam papadravyopa jivinam vidikriya vihinanam gatir govinda kirtanam. In Kali Yuga, lot of people, right, have all these problems of raga dvesha, being raga dvesha pradana, papa dravya upajivinam. Most of the wealth acquired is through papa dravyam, wrong actions, right? So minimum the Shastra says you either do Panchamaha Yajna or chant Aditya Hridayam, right? Vidikriya vihinanam, right? So that I acquire whatever papam I acquire, at least some of it I can wash off. Shastra says, okay, if you're not able to do Panchayatana Puja, etc., why can't you at least do Nama Sankirtanam and Gatihi Govinda Kirtanam, right? And at least, you know, a little bit of your Tamo Guna will get washed off, right? So the indirect message of Lord Krishna is never go by Raga Dvesha. Go by the Shastric instructions of do's and don'ts. This is not losing one's freedom, but actually following proper rules help us not only in our own, you know, having healthy habits, our own body, mind, everything, we would be able to keep it in a well-oiled form, like the chariot example that we saw in Kathopanishad, right? So in this 18th shloka, Lord Krishna completes the analysis of the 3 gunas. Now hereafter, Lord Krishna wants to talk about how to intelligently use these 3 gunas. What is the judicious employment of the 3 gunas for our own benefit, right? So that will be verse 19. Maybe I'll just introduce and then I'll stop here. So, Nanyam gunebhya kartaram, Nanyam gunebhya kartaram, Yada drashtanupashyati, Yada drashtanupashyati, Gunebhyascha param veti, Gunebhyascha param veti, Madbhavam sodhigacchati. So, Krishna here says that we require all the 3 gunas, even Tamo guna we require for resting, etc. But just make sure that you are aware of them and get everything in the right amount, right? So, yuktahara viharasya, yukta cheshtasya karmasu, yukta swapnava bodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. In chapter 6, we saw this verse, 17th verse. Give the body sufficient amount of sleep also. Have a balanced life. No doubt we have to use the Rajoguna for fulfilling our Arthakama Purushartha. More importantly, we have to use Rajoguna for Dharma Purushartha because Dharma is required for spiritual growth and moksha. So let there be pursuit of wealth, all right. Let there be pursuit of pleasures, all right. Legitimate pleasures are okay, right? But because they are all required for building up sufficient punyam for getting desire for Vedantic study, right? A desire for Vedantic study and opportunity for Vedantic study. Both of these require a lot of punyam. Many have opportunity but no desire. Many have desire but no opportunity. If these should come, I require a lot of punyam, and for that I have to use karma yoga, which requires rajoguna, right? And thereafter, Arjuna, may you use sattva guna to follow upasana and make the mind contemplative, because when I am involved in Panchamaha Yajna, my mind is more preoccupied in the actions and it is an extrovert mind, and that restless mind cannot do Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam. So if the extrovert Rajasic mind must be made and more Satvika, I have to follow Upasana like Saguna Ishvara Dhyanam, Vishwarupa Dhyanam, etc. And then the mind should learn to relax and remain without preoccupation. Mental preoccupation becomes the biggest obstacle for Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam, right? And once a person has practiced Upasana for a sufficient length of time, then the crucial Jnana Yoga, right, shift from Sattva Guna to Guna Atita, from Saguna to Nirguna, from Anatma to Atma. This shift can take place, right? So Lord Krishna is condensing that in these two very, very important verses. In the entire 14th chapter, these two verses are the most important, which condenses the Jnana Yoga, right? The travel from Sattva Guna to Nirguna, Sattva Guna to Gunatitaha. And how does Jnana Yoga help, right? So Jnana Yoga, inquiry into our own nature, right? The main portion of the important aspect of the 14th chapter we will see in the next class. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Any questions? Okay, there's a question. Okay, there's just a feedback here. Any other questions? I know a lot has been covered, especially on the Gati. You will have some thoughts. You do write to me if you have any questions also. So I don't see any hands up and I only see comments, no questions here also. So we'll meet next week, same time. Hari Om.